Of course, instead of actually defending viewers, the mainstream media always attacks us in order to shill for companies like Disney, and that has been happening for weeks leading up to the Acolyte's release. We had journos coming out and saying, oh, everybody is already anticipating the worst for the Acolyte, not even giving it a chance. But now that a few episodes are out and the newest one is out that pulls pronouns into the mix, making a big deal out of them and also changing even more lore in canon, of course, there are more articles being published saying racists are review bombing the black-led Star Wars The Acolyte series. I have a few different things to show off, but if you enjoy the content I create, follow me on social media, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, of course, we recently got this article from Forbes titled The Acolyte's 15% audience score is embarrassing for the audience scorers, saying we weren't giving it a chance, it did not deserve even close to a 15%, and it just kind of highlighted the bad state of journalism right now, because you have other Forbes writers like Eric Kane saying that the most, well, at that point, recent episode of Acolyte, which was episode 3, was the worst piece of Star Wars content ever created. And then you had Paul Tassi, who is a massive SJW, shilling for Disney, saying it deserves better than a 15%. But now we even have The Root coming out saying racists are review bombing The Acolyte. It says the Star Wars fandom continues to embarrass itself. Oh, no, we're not allowed to have our own opinions now, because that's what this boils down to, is that our opinions are not positive on something they enjoy and that they want to defend, so that means that we are instantly in the wrong. They never look in the mirror and go, you know what, maybe we're actually out of touch, which of course just goes to show how irrelevant critics are becoming. When you are this out of sync with how audiences feel, when you are rating something an 84 and audiences a 14, it goes to show that you're not going to have a job for very long. It says, though, the latest series in the franchise, The Acolyte, has fallen victim to yet another review bombing campaign from the audience, an unfortunate practice that's often rooted in racism and misogyny. Of course, when we have, game reviewers completely ignoring titles because they don't like the creators like J.K. Rowling, oh, it's okay when they don't want to play something or they don't want to watch something because they don't want to support people. But when we simply don't want to support Kathleen Kennedy, and even in a lot of cases, as you've seen on social media over the past few weeks, people have watched The Acolyte to try to give it a shot and they simply didn't like it, so they left a negative review that equals how they actually felt. Oh, we're just called racists and misogynists. The prequel series, which stars Amanda Stenberg, earned glowing reviews from critics, so they are trying to positively spin this, but if you take into account other pieces of information we have, it's not good. I mean, as you can see, the Acolyte views underperformed on Disney Plus, falling short of Ahsoka. It says the new Star Wars series doesn't zoom past much as it didn't sustain viewership over the weekend, and they're trying to say, oh, it was a success because it had, 11.1 million views in a week, but most pieces of content are only judged by a 3-day weekend when we're talking about Hollywood, and with a lot of TV series as well, the first 24 hours. And if you really break down that 11.1 million views in a week, it's not looking particularly good. I mean, this series cost them $200 million to make, which is an insane amount of money, but that equates to 1.5 million views a day. So if you're counting a standard 24-hour debut, that's 1.5 million views. If you're counting a 3-day weekend, that's 4.5. Either way, that really isn't positive. And of course, the recent episode 4, released, and people are roasting it on social media because they have pronoun dialogue. They also decide to make some pretty big retcons. It just goes goes to show that the people that are working on the Acolyte are not actually Star Wars fans, but activists who were hired by other activists like Kathleen Kennedy who want the Force to be female, even though the Force has never not been female. There have been plenty of amazing female characters written into Star Wars. It's just that they want it to be bigger and better, and they want it to be, in their opinion, more diverse and inclusive, even though they're excluding entire groups of people, or they're making them the villains. This, of course, has gone pretty viral at this point. The clip of Amanda Stenberg's character saying, is he or they with us?
What's that? What's puzzle? Is he or they with us?
They really thought that that dialogue right there is what Star Wars fans wanted to hear, that that was going to bring in a brand new audience. Of course, modern audiences, as companies like to dub them, which of course, modern audiences don't actually exist. The closest group to those people are sensitive snowflakes on social media, and we know that they don't care about Star Wars. They don't care about our entertainment. They just simply care that, oh, hey, you're making content. Good for you, Disney. By the way, I'm too busy watching another series that doesn't have to do with lightsabers and stupid spaceships. I mean, that's how these people think. That's their mentality. So instead of making content for the fans that you already had, they are making content for absolutely no one. We also have the big baddie casually floating into a scene. And I get it, right? It's supposed to be like very representative of like a spider creeping and crawling behind and like being very ominous, but at the same time it just looks really cheap and lazy, and it just doesn't seem very unique at all whatsoever. In my opinion, the big bads of the Acolyte are truly the writers. And then of course we have images like this, the Wookiee equivalent of a man bun, and we have retcons. Kiadi Moody, of course, was originally years and years ago, when Star Wars actually was, written with a plan in mind, not born until 93 BBY, and this takes place roughly 40 years after that. So, of course, we're now finding out that they're shifting timelines around, and that's not even talking about how he just completely forgets about this whole thing when he had said previously, impossible, the Sith have been extinct for a millennium. So, of course, they couldn't even bring in an existing character that people would know and actually integrate them in a cohesive way into the Acolyte story. They just picked basically whoever and were like, the timelines are close enough, let's just throw this guy in. So they're basically just going through and dealing as much damage to this franchise as possible, which isn't very surprising given the current state of Star Wars and the people who are hiring for these projects. Again, specifically Kathleen Kennedy. She is the worst thing that has happened to Star Wars ever, in my opinion. And while we were initially all very hopeful that Disney was going to throw a bunch of money towards Star Wars and actually hire competent writers many, many years ago, we clearly have seen time and time again that that is not the case, that they are hiring losers for these projects who are just continuing to absolutely destroy Star Wars. So things are not going very good right now for Disney. Of course, they have the media trying their very best to shill and run defense for the Acolyte, which isn't working. We're all pointing and laughing at, Paul Tassi over at Forbes and The Root. And of course, we have, people who have been Star Wars fans, maybe in some cases their whole lives, pointing and laughing at the absolute disaster that is the Acolyte. So it will be interesting to see how the episodes continue to progress. We still have 4 more to watch, unfortunately. To see what else they end up retconning and changing around. Only time will tell, but for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.